The year is 2010. A young Filipino boy is sitting quietly in front of the TV, eagerly waiting for the event of his small 10-year-old life, the Ben 10-10-10 Marathon, a 5-hour event of non-stop tennis in action that would occur on the 10th of October, of course. Unfortunately for him, the event happened on a Sunday, which is meant for church and not for 5 hours of nonsense, his mother said. So, as he grumpily stands to turn the TV off, he flicks through some other channels and catches a glimpse of a trailer for a new Filipino film. He makes no remark about it at first, until he notices the main actor. It's TV show host Vice Ganda. But he hears his mom calling again and reluctantly gets ready for Sunday service. Every year since, he notices a new movie trailer with the same TV show host again and again. Eventually, he watches a little bit of the show Vice was in. This was when he realized the immense popularity of this person.
Kasi di ba may mga ganyan taxi, nakakabwisit, paparahin mo. Tapos sabi mo, saan po kayo? Ay, sa Mandaluyong. Sa Mandaluyong. Ay, ang layo. So, gusto ko. Kaya ako nakikipag-away ako sa ganyan eh. O, paano sinabi mo? Ay, ang layo eh. Siyempre, sasakay ba ako kung malapit? Sana nilakad ko na lang. Kaya nga kita pinara kasi nalalayuan din ako. Eh kung malapit lang pala, o sige, bumaba ka, ako maghahatid sa yung driver. Sila nga yan. Magigil ako sa driver na yan eh.
Loud, sarcastic, and very down-to-earth, Vice had a strong style of comedy that was addicting to listen to and imitate, so fans sought to do just that. The young boy would notice Vice's general demeanor emulated in normal conversation, kids repeating famous movie quotes from Vice, and every year there'd be a new movie with his name and his face at the center point, attracting old fans and curious watchers to see what all the fuss is about. He'd left a permanent impact on Filipino culture, and there were no signs of that fact changing. Then the boy grew up not seeing any of the movies, became incredibly cynical, and here we are today. Vice Ganda movies. Yes, the bane of my existence. It's an understatement to say these were fairly popular when they've been making one of these every year for almost a decade now. I'm not kidding. This is the Marvel Cinematic Universe of the Philippines, and just like the MCU films, these are stupidly prolific, breaking box office records and becoming the highest grossing Filipino films of the year they release, 6 in the highest grossing of all time. And so, like tax season or death, watching at least one of these has become an inevitability in my life. What I should have known back then was that I would have eventually watched almost every single one of these. But why? Why these in particular? Why is everyone dancing to them? Why did they make so much money then disappear off the face of the earth? Yet why do I still care about these? And why is there a weird birthmark on my right arm that spells out Vice? So let's just start from where it all began. Petrang Caballo, or Peter the Horse, came out on October 13, 2010, directed by Wenvi Daramas and written by Mel Del Rosario, and it looks like it was filmed in the 80s. In fact, this movie is a remake of a 1988 movie with the same name, so of course, we need to take a look at that one first for comparison. On second thought, maybe we should just go with the new one. Meant to kickstart Vice's upcoming rise as a star, the director set out to display Vice's style of comedy front and center. This remake only takes the title and a few of the morals from the original film. Other famous Filipino names also join as the foil to Vice's more eccentric role. One last aspect the remake borrows from the original is that it starts right into the action. No time is wasted so that the audience knows exactly what kind of movie they paid for. So we start with a film adaptation of those kids trying to transform into wolves and an edited-in jump scare sound effect. Sir! I hope the subtlety of this movie isn't too much for the general audience. This is Peter, an adopted son living the high life. He has this large estate with dozens of maids and houseworkers, owns multiple horses for racing, and an airline company. Yes, he just owns an airline company. No explanations, and it's called Solid Liquid Airlines. Don't ask, everyone owns one these days. But compared to his adopted mother, he abuses these gifts and has grown quite hostile to everyone around him. He constantly fights the maids, his employees, and even those related to his stepmom. Biggest example in the film was when, well...
Ako mauna! Unahan ko na kayo! Huy, dali, dali! Dali!
Tumigil ka! Sinabi na tumigil ka eh!
Anong ginagawa mo sa paanan ng kabayo?
Naninilip.
Oo, naninilip. Ano naninilip?
Oo.
Ang kapal na mukha mo, ha? Para sabihin ko sa iyo at para patunayan ko sa inyong wala akong gusto sa inyo. Pwede ka na lumayas ngayon dito sa shed ko. At sama mo yung pulpul mong pinsan!
Hoy! Matagal na namin gusto umalis dito. Hinintay lang namin yung 30 man pay namin!
Pulpul ka talaga! Tatanga-tanga ka! Unang-una, walang 30th man pay! Dahil 12 lang ang months!
Oo nga no.
Di na namin aantayin yun. Isaksak mo sa baga mo pera mo. We quits! Tara na!
We quit! Tara na!
So naturally, the next turn of events would be that Peter gets his comeuppance, as so eloquently foreshadowed in the beginning, right?
Right.
Wrong!
His mom tells him his own life story.
Nalipatam ka din, Peter.
Ayaw mo talaga akong tatanan niyang kabaklan mo, ha? Sinasabi ko sa'yo, magpakalalaki ka, ha? Ha?
Tay, di ko po mapigil. Ganito po talaga ako, Tay. Mahirap po ang gusto niyo mangyari, Tay.
Ito, magtanda ka! Halika rito! Sinasabi ko! Halika, itatali kita ng sorry! Halika rito! Gawa sila! Buhay! Binwisit mo! Magdusa ka ngayon, ha? Ikaw ngayon ang maghahanap buhay, ha?
Wouldn't this fit better in the beginning as a sort of...
Yep, that's me. You're probably wondering how I ended up in this situation.
that would have set up the parallel of how he became like his dad. This would have established the drama aspect of the movie a bit better, but I'm guessing the director did think of this and said to himself, maybe starting my movie with a child drowning, abuse, and enslavement isn't that funny. But it isn't funny at all. They really made this guy out to be the spawn of Satanas himself. Was any of this meant to be comedic? Of course, slapstick exists, but this is beyond that. I guess this part could be considered funny, with the music and all. I just really hope they don't try to make the dad redeemable because that would be stupid. They did exactly that.
Hihingi ka ng pera, no?
Hindi, anak. Kung meron man akong gustong hilingin sa'yo, yun ay ang kapatawaran mo.
He could have taken him to court. Have this man pay for all those legitimate crimes he committed. He would have pleaded guilty too. I mean, just look at him. Instead, Peter kidnaps his new kid just to give her the same treatment he got. Just genius. Fortunately for the girl, she's got a bit of an attitude so she could defend herself from Peter's tirades.
Mahirap man kami, maganda ako. Wala man kaming pera, maganda ako. Eh ikaw, maganda ka ba? Po.
After some more horsing around, we finally get to the point of this movie's existence. 50 minutes into the movie. Just like the beginning of Twilight Princess.
So, isang buong package ito. May effects na hindi magpapahuli dahil hindi nagtipid si Boss Vic eh. As a matter of fact, kasama ako sa meeting nung sa effects people kay Digital Dodge na hindi kita tatawaran, sabi niya. Pero gusto ko pang Hollywood ang trabaho mo.
I'm sure we've seen other comedy flicks where the main character gets a special ability or curse, whether it be not being able to lie, a remote that controls the universe, or literally playing God. It's the main focus of their movies, usually trying to see the initial benefit of their powers or trying to get around their curse, eventually hitting a breaking point where the powers are abused or proven to be unavoidable. They give ample time to introduce the main cast, but they make sure to really hit the selling point of the movie front and center. But taking almost an hour to get to the point of the movie is a major hit on its pacing. Even my mom, who usually loves these very corny Filipino flicks, was already asleep by the time Vice made his Animorph reference. Back to it though, nothing actually happens after Peter first transforms. He just wakes up as a human and walks back to his estate with a Megami Tensei reference. The god of horses Yes, the god of horses, I forgot to mention him, but who cares, it's the god of horses, then explains the curse to Peter. He'll turn into a horse if he's mean to people, and the only way to turn back is to do good things. Of course, Peter's first actions after this is to kick a room of people out so that he could charge his phone.
Ay, ano to? Sumusunod sa puwet ko. Ang sarap panoorin.
Oh no, how could this have happened? His saving grace comes in the form of these two guys who are his old farmhands. Peter takes the place of their old horse after it kinda just dies. During all this, the people from Peter's estate are actually kind of worried for him. His stepsister is especially anxious about a bit more than just looking for him.
Ano ba talagang iniisip mo?
Marami po kung bakit ako nandito. Kamusta na kaya si tatay? Bakit ganun si kuya? Ang bagong presidente. Ang national budget. Ang kahirapan.
With Erickson, Peter only ever does two things. Count 'em, 2 deeds you can consider as good. He stops this common thief by beating him up. And helps this random pregnant lady to the hospital. I would assume you do more in this being a horse plotline, but it's oddly left in the dark for the majority of the movie. I'm not gonna go in depth about how the movie ends, it's very standard stuff, you could probably guess what happens next. So it's revealed that the estate actually owns the government 100 million pesos, so Peter does the obvious thing and gives the rest of his money away to his houseworkers. Why? Because he's nice now. Then, when trying to visit his dad, he sees him collapsed on the floor, and Peter takes him to the hospital in form of reincorporated symbolism. The dad seems perfectly fine, and this was all that needed to happen for Peter to forgive him. In fairness, this is somewhat of a touching scene, the development just wasn't there to justify it. So how does Peter make the money back? Well, he goes horse racing, duh, because he's a horse. But he can't be mean anymore. One quick curse ought to fix that problem. Just one race and the debt is paid off. Yay! They kiss, very gay, the end. So how was the film? Not bad. My biggest gripe with this movie is that it's too self-indulgent. Most of the film is carried by Vice's undoubtedly infectious energy, which is great. His first leading outing is a full Vice-a-thon, unrelenting and only given time to breathe when he displays his more emotional side. However, his style of comedy wears off pretty thin towards the end when it's all that the movie's got going for it. That and a lot of references to whatever was trending at the time, which of course aren't anywhere near relevant these days. And can we stop with the whole there's morals to be found here when it wasn't the main focus at all? If you want this to have a family moral but still be a comedy, then start with the family drama stuff and end the movie on its conclusion. The last scene with the dad feels so irrelevant compared to everything else, and they don't even conclude it properly because it just moves on to the horse race bit as the final scene in the movie. Though I'm not gonna dog on them for not having the best special effects. It is a movie from a third world country, and they outsourced that scene to some people from China. But what was the budget for this movie, you might ask? Well, rest assured that I don't know the answer either. It's like some sort of conspiracy that they don't ever talk about the budget in these clearly high production movies. Other Filipino directors aren't afraid to tell everyone how much they spent on their films, but for some reason this guy just refuses to divulge any information on what goes on behind the scenes. The cinematography sucks. It's pretty obvious that they couldn't get the same camera for even one scene. Some of the scenes have shots that alternate between their good camera and a not so good camera, and it's just jarring. Every voice line is so obviously dubbed over, but I can understand it when you have sets that sound like
Action! Sundan mo si Joya. Taka! Nagtataka! Line agad!
The music is lame, but that's par for the course for any comedy, and don't even get me started on the sound design.
Sir! Sige, natatakot ako ng itlog ko sa...
So, did I not like this movie? Yes, there was no doubt. On a separate note, I couldn't seem to get a full HD copy of this thing. I even bought what I thought to be a legit DVD that came with the bonuses and all. Though, I did notice that the camera quality and the behind the scenes stuff was drastically different from the movie. Even copies I got from other means had pretty much the same level of quality. I might have been duped here. Or it's just the trashy cameras they used.
Welcome home, Popsy!
Just a little over a year later, and it's time for a new Vice Ganda romp. This is PRAYBEYT Benjamin. Oh, and if you're wondering, yes, it's spelled that way, why wouldn't it be? Directed by the same person, Mr. Wen V. Daramas, and this time, he wrote it as well, so he's got some big shoes to fill. And right off the bat, how come the camera's even worse this time? On Wikipedia it says that they use straight up older movie cameras. Why? Does it enhance the filmmaking in any way? Is it for artistic reasons like what the Snyder Cut did? Is it because they wanted to cheap out as much as they could? Probably that. It doesn't help that they didn't tell us what the budget was like last time. And again, bringing in other well-known actors for minor roles. Can't these movies stand on their own? Do you always have to sell your movie with, hey, you know who we got? Yep, that's right. We got Mark Wahlberg in the movie. Not as a main character, no. He'll just be there to say hi.
What? No!
It was kind of cute when you gave them roles that would seem important, like the mom character from the first one, or in this movie's case, the grandpa. But it just feels like you got these guys for a week of filming and nothing else. But now I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's take a proper look at PRAYBEYT Benjamin. The movie begins by telling us that there's a lineage of brave warriors named Benjamin Santos that have fought since the Spanish colonial period, all the way to when the Japanese occupied the Philippines. Our main character, Benji, is the 8th iteration of this BS, his dad being the 7th and his grandpa the 6th. This guy looks like he fought in the Japanese War, by the way. Not to mention the actor in real life was at the right age group, but Benji says that all these guys died. The conflict is that the 7th and the 8th generation haven't shown any interest in dedicating their life to the next fight. Benjamin the 7th is more of an inventor, and the 8th, nicknamed Benji of course, is the big A. They are promptly kicked out and live a quiet life until an opportunity arises to meet with Grandpa the 6th again. So, the main character, though hesitant at first, makes an attempt to appeal to an old person who represents what is expected of the main character. MC does this through a traditional dance associated with umbrellas and is almost instantly rejected by the old person. Where have I heard this before? I'm not sure. I need to get back to you on that. Moving on, Grandpa the 6th gets kidnapped by a terrorist group and they demand to take the entire country or else they'll murder Grandpa. So the military retaliates by enlisting a man from every family to join the upcoming war. The father reluctantly volunteers against his family's wishes since he is frail and weak, but the main character makes the decision to join the military in place of the father and leaves in the dead of the night. It's Mulan. The plot is pretty much Mulan. They do the intro for the secondaries, the training, the romance with the general, the liar revealed scene, and even the climax has them use unconventional weaponry to fight the bad guys and rescue Grandpa. The director even admits that.
Lagi ang peg ko kapag pelikula ni Vice at kapag bida si Vice, parang Disney. Kung alam niyo yung Mulan, hero ito sa China na ginawa ng Disney. Another Disney movie na naman, yung peg ko lang ito. Yung peg. So, kapag yung mga Disney movies ang gagamitin mo, may appeal agad yan eh. Babae, lalaki, bakla, tomboy, bata. So, kung same yung pinagbabasihan natin lahat, makakaasa tayo na isa na namang cute, pang-pamilya, pang-kalahatan, yung pelikulang isusunod dapat kay Vice.
Well, it's kind of obvious that you took more than just a little inspiration from the 1998 classic. There are tons of movies and shows that involve the unconventional hero trope. You could have taken from countless stories and thought of a more unique spin than just gay Mulan. Unfortunately, Disney stole back and used that gay aspect for their reboot. So now we have two terrible versions of Mulan. But surely they must have added more things to justify making it in the first place. Well, one thing this movie has that the original didn't was, the fart gun.
Inay! Inay!
So the dad's an inventor, making weapons out of fans and tiaras, pretty effective stuff actually. Why was he rejected again? Because he doesn't want to fight? He did way more stuff than the military, and he wasn't even there. There's this small joke with the terrorists demanding the Philippines release this guy called Billy Aladdin, so there's that, that's something new. We get a scene where Benji is visited by his family and it's kinda neat, completely original and effective enough. But let's discuss what they did with the parts that were taken from Mulan, shall we? Do you remember the short training arc with I'll Make a Man Out of You? Remember when that was about using your ingenuity and talent to overcome impossible odds? Well here, it's just a long montage where they get good at being soldiers, that's it. No passion, no creativity, just a lame set of scenes accompanied by a lame song. Next up are the side characters. I guess these guys were alright. They weren't given much of a role, so they're all just stereotypes. Pretty much like the original trio. The reveal scene. In the original, Mulan was injured and had to expose herself, and that's how they found out. Her crime was punishable by death, but Shen spared her for saving his life. It was kind of harsh to kill her in the first place, but that was in the ancient times. You'd get hanged for stealing a handkerchief in the 18th century if it costed more than $8. In this movie, Benji is kicked out for being gay, and that's it. Nothing else. This isn't taking place in the 70s or anything, just early 2000s. Don't let the old trashy cameras fool you. And you want to know how they found out Benji's secret? It wasn't when his own squad mates found out almost immediately at the beginning. Not in any of the times where he was flirting with the general. What led to the reveal was because of some randy soldiers who just wanted to pick on him. They got him drunk, instigated him to start grinding on the guys, recorded everything, and sent it to the higher ups. But why weren't any of the other guys questioned at all? These guys started the gay parade and are also in the video they themselves recorded. Benji barely had a moment to defend himself and got booted ASAP. Now without another scene with him and the general being all sappy. Tears don't lie. Benji's group leaves with him, I don't know why. They kinda just go. The army is ambushed by the bad guys and the main squad is left to infiltrate enemy ranks and somehow rescue the old man. Did I ever mention this movie's like Mulan? There's a couple similarities. Oh, and did you wonder how these guys were able to get inside the enemy base?
Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3, go!
Whatever, just as long as they didn't do the same joke from the original. Oh, what the hell? Why'd they bother with the stupid Angry Birds bit if there's gonna be another gate anyway? They saved the general, they saved the old man, Benji is recognized for his heroism and gets shot. He has a moment with the Benjamins of the past, letting him know that he fulfilled his destiny or whatever. This was never the main focus of the movie. He of course gets back up and is celebrated as a national hero along with his squad. And that's PRAYBEYT Benjamin. One aspect I didn't mention is the actual comedy. It's still the same old Vice Ganda sarcasm, now with a slice of slapstick with all the action scenes and whatever. I can't really talk about the jokes themselves since they're all serviceable at best. I guess you won't be too bored. But if you're so used to these like I am, you'll start to notice that some of these jokes go on for way too long, artificially lengthening the movie. The music, the acting, they're all pretty much what you'd expect from the last one. The camera, like I mentioned, very out of the box decision, especially after saying that the budget's been raised. But oddly enough, this movie's a lot more watchable than the first movie. It's more focused on moving the plot forward, and probably because they had a bit of a helping hand with that. So, I don't know whether or not to give or dock points for that. Maybe I'll just go ahead and give it a it's just slightly above the first movie, but not for the right reasons. One thing I can congratulate it for is that it's better than the Mulan remake, that's for sure.